The town of Maple Falls, nestled in the picturesque landscape of Vermont, was a place where time seemed to pause. The streets were lined with historical buildings, their brick facades holding stories of generations past. The golden hues of autumn leaves blanketed the cobblestone paths, crunching softly under the feet of the townsfolk as they made their way to the local cafe or the bustling farmers' market. The air carried the faint scent of freshly baked apple pies and burning firewood, adding to the town's comforting ambience. At the heart of Maple Falls was Mrs. Eleanor Mayfield, a well-loved figure who, despite her 78 years, walked with the dignity and grace of someone much younger. Her silver hair was always neatly pinned, and her eyes, although shadowed by the years, still sparkled with warmth and kindness. A retired teacher, Eleanor was known for her generosity and unwavering spirit. Her days were filled with volunteer work, crafting blankets for the local shelter, or reading stories to children at the library. Yet, of all her joys, nothing compared to the companionship of her golden retriever, Buddy. Buddy was more than just a pet. He was Eleanor's lifeline, a gentle giant with a golden coat that shimmered in the sunlight and eyes that reflected pure loyalty. His presence filled Eleanor's modest home with life and warmth. The townspeople would often see them walking together, Buddy trotting happily beside Eleanor as if he knew that his job was to protect her. The duo was inseparable, bound by a silent understanding and a love that transcended words. On a chilly morning in late October, Eleanor prepared for her weekly trip to the church, where she volunteered at the soup kitchen. The air was brisk, and the first hints of frost glistened on the rooftops. She carefully wrapped a scarf around her neck and slipped on her wool coat, while Buddy watched her every move, tail wagging in anticipation. He loved these outings, not just for the treats he would inevitably receive, but because he relished the simple joy of being by Eleanor's side. As they walked down Main Street, the familiar sounds of the town enveloped them: children's laughter, the distant clanging of a blacksmith's hammer from the historic smithy that doubled as a museum, and the soft melodies of a busker playing the violin on the corner. Buddy's ears twitched with every sound, his alertness a testament to his protective nature. He kept a careful watch on Eleanor, never straying too far, as they waved to Mr. Thompson, the grocer, and shared a few kind words with Miss Clark, the town's florist. It was the kind of morning that reminded Eleanor why she loved Maple Falls, a town where everyone knew each other's names, where kindness was the currency that kept life moving. Buddy, ever perceptive, nudged her hand as if to say, "I'm here." Eleanor chuckled, scratching behind his ears. "Oh, Buddy, what would I do without you?" she murmured, her voice carrying both affection and an unspoken gratitude. But just as they reached the narrow alley that connected Main Street to the old church, something caught Buddy's attention. His body tensed, ears pointing forward like antennas. Eleanor felt it too, a sudden, chilling shift in the atmosphere. The laughter and music seemed to dim, replaced by an unsettling quiet. Before she could react, a shadow emerged from the side street, a figure cloaked in dark clothing with eyes that flickered with menace. The man's voice was low and sharp. "Hand over your purse, old lady, and no one gets hurt." Eleanor's heart thudded wildly in her chest as fear spread through her veins like ice. Buddy stepped forward, his usually gentle eyes hardening with an instinctive protectiveness. A low growl rumbled in his throat, a sound Eleanor had never heard from him before. She clutched her purse tightly, eyes darting between the thief and her loyal companion, feeling both terror and an unexpected surge of hope. She knew Buddy would protect her, but at what cost? The silence in the alleyway was suffocating. Eleanor's hands trembled as she tried to steady her breath, each heartbeat pounding in her ears like a drum. The man's eyes, cold and unforgiving, darted between her face and the glistening clasp of her purse. He took a step forward, and Buddy mirrored his movement, positioning himself between Eleanor and the threat. His muscles were taut, and the growl that resonated from deep within his chest was now a fierce, unrelenting warning. "Get that mutt out of the way," the man snarled, his voice cracking with impatience. He lunged forward, a knife glinting in his hand as it caught a brief flash of sunlight. Eleanor's voice caught in her throat. She wanted to scream, to shout for help, but fear had stolen the words before they could form. The world seemed to slow, each second stretching into eternity as she watched the scene unfold. Buddy didn't flinch. In a blur of motion, he launched himself at the intruder, jaws snapping with a precision born of pure instinct. The man's eyes widened in shock as Buddy's teeth found their mark, sinking into the fabric of his coat and forcing him back. A guttural shout escaped the assailant as he struggled to maintain his balance, flailing wildly to shake the determined dog off. Eleanor stumbled backward, her hand pressing against the cold brick wall for support as she watched, both terrified and awestruck. The thief managed to twist out of Buddy's grip, and for a brief, heart-stopping moment, there was silence. Then, with a snarl of frustration, he lunged at Buddy, his knife cutting through the space between them. Buddy dodged, the blade missing him by a hair's breadth, but the momentum sent the dog sprawling to the ground. Eleanor gasped, the air rushing from her lungs as if she had been struck. Buddy struggled to his feet, his legs quivering with exertion but eyes locked on his target, unwavering. "Stop this, please." Eleanor's voice broke the tension, a desperate plea that hung in the air, unanswered. The thief turned toward her, an ugly sneer curling his lips, but before he could make another move, Buddy lunged again, this time knocking the knife from the man's grasp. The clatter of metal against stone was a sound that rang with finality. The thief, momentarily stunned, took a stumbling step backward, eyes darting around the alley as if searching for an escape. Buddy advanced, his body a fortress of determination and loyalty. He stood between Eleanor and the man, his growl a reminder that any attempt to harm her would not go unchallenged. The thief's confidence faltered. The snarl on Buddy's face and the sheer ferocity in his stance were enough to make the man think twice. With a hissed curse, he turned and sprinted down the alley, disappearing into the warren of side streets. Eleanor collapsed to her knees, relief flooding her system as adrenaline ebbed away, leaving her shaking. Buddy trotted to her side, his eyes softening as he pressed his head against her arm. Tears welled in her eyes, and she wrapped her arms around him, feeling the rapid thump of his heartbeat echo her own. "Oh, Buddy," she whispered, her voice breaking. "You saved me." Around them, the sounds of the town returned, filtering in slowly like the return of a forgotten melody. A few passers-by, alerted by the noise, began to gather at the edge of the alley, their faces etched with concern. Mr. Thompson, the grocer, pushed through the small crowd, his expression one of both worry and awe as he took in the scene before him. Eleanor on the ground, clutching her loyal golden retriever and the scattered evidence of a thwarted attack. "Eleanor, are you all right?" he called, his voice rough with emotion. She nodded, a small, tremulous smile breaking through as she stroked Buddy's fur. He licked her hand, eyes still watchful, as if reassuring himself that the danger had truly passed. "We're fine, thanks to Buddy," she said, her voice steadier now. The crowd murmured, glancing at the golden retriever with newfound respect. Word spread quickly in Maple Falls, and soon everyone would know how Buddy, the town's gentle guardian, had defended one of their own with unwavering courage. Eleanor's fingers found the spot behind Buddy's ears, scratching gently as she whispered, "You are my hero, my brave boy." Buddy's tail wagged, the tension in his body easing at last. The bond between them, already unbreakable, felt even stronger in that moment, a testament to the loyalty of a dog who would do anything to protect the one he loved. In the days that followed, news of Buddy's brave act spread like wildfire through Maple Falls. The small town buzzed with talk of the golden retriever who had defended his owner with such unwavering courage. Local papers ran stories with headlines like, "Golden Guardian, Buddy saves elderly woman from harm," accompanied by photos of Eleanor and Buddy standing outside their ivy-clad home. Children would stop by with their parents just to catch a glimpse of the now famous dog, bringing treats and pats that Buddy accepted with gracious humility. Despite the town's renewed sense of admiration, Eleanor found herself more shaken than she let on. The memory of the knife glinting mere inches from Buddy haunted her dreams. She would wake in the middle of the night, heart pounding, only to feel the reassuring warmth of Buddy curled up at her feet. His steady breathing was her lifeline, a reminder that they were safe, that the nightmare had ended. But Eleanor couldn't shake the gnawing fear that perhaps it hadn't. One morning, as the first light of dawn painted the sky in soft hues of pink and orange, Eleanor sat by her window, sipping tea from her favorite porcelain cup. Buddy lay beside her, eyes half closed but always alert, as if on perpetual watch. She reached down to scratch his head, her fingers tracing the familiar path through his silky fur. "You deserve more than this, you know," she whispered, voice tinged with both gratitude and guilt. "I've been thinking, maybe it's time to make sure you're always protected, too." Later that day, Eleanor made her way to the town's veterinarian and animal behaviorist, Dr. Jonathan Reed. The young doctor had always admired Buddy's gentle nature and was among the first to visit after the incident. Now, as Eleanor shared her concerns, he nodded thoughtfully. "Buddy's instincts are remarkable, but I understand why you'd want to be sure he's ready if anything like that ever happens again," Dr. Reed said, his tone kind but firm. "We could start some training sessions focused on protective measures, but in a way that won't change his friendly nature." Eleanor felt a wave of relief. Training Buddy to sharpen his already impressive instincts felt like the right step, a proactive measure in a world that had shown its capacity for danger. The sessions began the following week, with Dr. Reed guiding them through drills that reinforced Buddy's natural guardian tendencies while emphasizing restraint and control. Buddy took to the training with the same enthusiasm he showed for their walks in the park or playtime with Eleanor, responding to commands with unwavering focus and dedication. As the days turned into weeks, Buddy's confidence grew. Eleanor marveled at how seamlessly he adapted to the new routines, always eager to learn and please. One evening, as the sun dipped behind the hills, casting the town in a warm, golden glow, Eleanor and Buddy practiced one of their drills in the backyard. "Stay," she commanded softly, and Buddy froze, his gaze locked on her, muscles coiled like a spring. "Good boy," she whispered, releasing him, and he bounded to her side, tail wagging furiously. The training brought an unexpected change in Eleanor, too. With each session, she felt her fear loosen its hold. The memory of that dark alley, once a source of sleepless nights, began to lose its sharp edges. She knew the danger they faced was real, but with Buddy by her side, she also knew they were prepared for whatever might come. One evening, as the first chill of winter settled over Maple Falls, Eleanor and Buddy were invited to a town meeting where the mayor wanted to honor them for their bravery. The town hall, with its tall arched windows and aged wooden pews, was packed with familiar faces. Buddy sat at Eleanor's feet, alert but calm, as the mayor spoke of courage, community, and the bond between humans and their four-legged protectors. When it was Eleanor's turn to speak, she stood, leaning on her cane for balance as she looked out over the sea of friends and neighbors. "I've lived a long life," she began, her voice steady and warm, "and I've seen many acts of kindness and bravery. But what Buddy did for me that day was more than an act of protection. It was an act of love. And that love has given me the strength to face my fears." The crowd erupted in applause, and Buddy, sensing the excitement, barked once, tail wagging as if to say, "I'm just doing my job." Eleanor smiled, the warmth of the moment seeping into her heart, healing the last of the wounds that fear had left behind. For the first time since that day in the alley, she felt truly safe, not just because of Buddy's training or the town support, but because of the bond that anchored them both. The weeks following the town meeting brought a renewed sense of peace to Eleanor and Buddy's lives. The crisp air of autumn transitioned into the chill of winter, blanketing Maple Falls in a soft, white layer of snow. The town became a picturesque landscape of twinkling lights and frosted rooftops. Despite the cold, Eleanor and Buddy kept their routines, taking daily walks through snow-covered paths and attending the church's seasonal events. The winter air was filled with the sounds of holiday cheer, carolers singing in harmony, and the faint jingle of sleigh bells in the distance. Each step Eleanor took on those icy paths reminded her of the delicate balance between fear and courage. She had come to realize that strength wasn't just found in moments of heroics, but in the quiet persistence of moving forward day after day. And at her side, Buddy walked with a newfound purpose, his gait a blend of playful exuberance and the solemn duty of a guardian. Dr. Reed continued to check in with them, sometimes joining their walks or stopping by to observe how Buddy's training had become part of their daily life. "He's sharper than ever," Dr. Reed said one afternoon, watching Buddy respond flawlessly to Eleanor's commands as they practiced in the snowy garden. Buddy's tail wagged energetically each time Eleanor praised him, his eyes sparkling with the simple joy of making her proud. It was clear that the training had only deepened their bond, giving both of them the confidence to face whatever came their way. The townspeople, too, embraced Buddy as their unofficial protector. Children would call out to him as they passed by, their laughter trailing behind them like echoes of summer. Buddy always responded with a friendly bark or a wag of his tail, his demeanor gentle yet alert. Eleanor couldn't help but smile at the way he had become a symbol of hope and safety in Maple Falls. What had once been an ordinary dog was now a living legend, a hero who had turned fear into strength for an entire community. But true healing, Eleanor learned, didn't come solely from public recognition or shared stories. It came in the quiet moments at home, where Buddy would rest his head on her lap as they sat by the fireplace, the warm glow casting flickering shadows on the walls. It was in the simple comfort of knowing that, even in her most vulnerable moments, she was never truly alone. One particularly frigid evening, as snow piled high against the windowsills, Eleanor traced the rim of her teacup and gazed at Buddy, who lay curled at her feet. "You know, Buddy," she murmured, breaking the gentle silence, "I used to think that bravery was something that only young people possessed, something reserved for stories and grand gestures." She paused, the crackling of the fire filling the space between her words. "But now I see that it's found in the loyalty of a friend who stands by you, no matter what." Buddy's ears twitched at the sound of her voice, and he lifted his head, eyes meeting hers with an expression that spoke volumes. He shifted closer, nudging her leg with his nose as if to say, "I'm here, and I always will be." A tear escaped down Eleanor's cheek, not from fear or sadness, but from a deep, abiding sense of gratitude. She reached down and stroked Buddy's head, feeling the soft warmth of his fur and the steady rise and fall of his breath. Winter in Maple Falls carried with it a quiet kind of magic, one that settled into the hearts of its residents. As the days grew shorter and the nights colder, Eleanor found herself reflecting more often on that fateful day in the alley. The fear that once gripped her so tightly now felt distant, replaced by a deeper understanding of what it meant to be truly resilient. Buddy's act of courage had sparked something in her, something that had been dormant for years, a will to live fully and fearlessly, to embrace each moment as a gift. One evening, the mayor of Maple Falls sent out an announcement inviting everyone to a community gathering in the town square, complete with hot cocoa, warm pastries, and stories shared around a blazing bonfire. The gathering was meant to celebrate the spirit of the town and the resilience that carried them through the changing seasons. Eleanor and Buddy attended, bundled up against the cold, surrounded by friends who had become like family. As the flames crackled and stories were shared, someone called out, "Tell us about Buddy again." The request was met with cheers and laughter, and Eleanor, smiling, recounted the tale of that heart-stopping day. She spoke not just of the moment itself, but of the days that followed, of the fear, the healing, and the quiet, steadfast presence of Buddy by her side. The townsfolk listened, their faces illuminated by the warm glow, eyes glistening with emotion. When she finished, the crowd erupted into applause, and Buddy, sensing the attention, barked happily, his tail wagging as if he understood that this night was not just about the past, but about the strength they had all found moving forward. As the last embers of the bonfire glowed in the night, casting a soft light on the gathered crowd, Eleanor felt a warmth that had nothing to do with the fire. It was a warmth born from the shared strength of a community and the unwavering loyalty of her four-legged companion. Buddy sat beside her, eyes reflecting the firelight and ears perked, as if listening to every word that was spoken around them. Eleanor looked down at him, her heart swelling with pride and love. "We've come a long way, haven't we, Buddy?" she whispered, a gentle smile touching her lips. The golden retriever nudged her hand with his nose, an answer as clear as any spoken word. Yes, they had come a long way, from the terror of that alley to the safety and joy of this night surrounded by friends. The story of that day had transformed from a moment of fear into a symbol of resilience, not just for Eleanor but for everyone in Maple Falls. It was a reminder that true courage often lies in the quiet, unwavering loyalty that stands firm in the face of danger. It reminded them that love, in all its forms, has the power to overcome even the darkest moments. As the evening wound down, Eleanor stood, with Buddy by her side, and looked out at the faces of her neighbors. People who had become more than friends, they were her family. She felt a profound sense of peace, knowing that no matter what challenges might come, she was not alone. With Buddy at her side and the love of her community behind her, she felt ready to face anything. "Thank you all," she said softly, her voice carrying a note of heartfelt emotion, "for being here, for sharing this journey with us." The applause that followed was gentle, filled with understanding and admiration. And as Buddy barked once more, tail wagging as if in agreement, Eleanor knew that this chapter of their story was not just about survival. It was about living, truly living, with hope and courage.